Hello and welcome. This is a very special episode that we are bringing to you over the weekend in our coverage of Mission Paris here on Firstpost. And of course, this is looking back at the games that was. So let's get started. Yes, we're looking at the hits and misses. Now, Paris Olympics vowed for this edition to be the best. It wanted to be a record-breaking edition. It vowed to be the greenest ever games. Now, of course, there was a lot of noise leading up to the Olympics. It created a lot of records right at the start before it all began, because this was the first edition that saw equal participation of women and male athletes for the first time ever since the Olympics started. But the biggest talking point that started emerging as the Olympics started was, of course, the many controversies, beginning with the opening ceremony. Then, of course, River Seine came under the scanner for endangering the athletes. And then, of course, the athletes themselves being disgruntled with all the facilities that was being provided at the Games Village and threatening to leave. Take a look. An opening ceremony of any mega event, more so an Olympics, is about projecting the host country's traditions, maintaining the ethos of the games, and bringing some of the biggest sporting icons of the country together. It's the opening act of a long play, and the pressure is on organizers to get it right. Paris wanted to set an example and set the tone of the games with an opening ceremony like never before. So they ditched the stadium or the village and opted for River Seine instead as the place for it all to unfold, the water body that runs through the city. Pollution and toxins aside, they wanted to provide spectators and everyone gathered there a spectacle to remember. And the excitement was sky high, despite the rains that threatened to dampen spirits. But I'll tell you what, rain couldn't do what the opening scenes of the ceremony managed to do: create quite a furore. What you saw there was, let's call it a rendition of the famous Last Supper, as originally depicted by the famous artist Leonardo da Vinci. The Last Supper originally is a depiction of the biblical scene of Jesus with his apostles, sharing the last meal before the crucifixion. Now, it's great to pay your respects to something that is revered by Catholics the world over. What France did was basically give their spin to it. So what was supposed to be an adaptation turned into a bit of a parody for the purists. Why? Because the scenes had drag queens performing every character of the famous and religious Last Supper. The scene featured DJ and producer Barbara Bush, LGBTQA+ icon, flanked by drag artists and dancers on either side. And that sparked outrage across the world. Everyone was fuming at France's seemingly insensitive hand in treating something that was sacred to many. It was seen as an act ridiculing religious sentiments. And the internet broke with many lashing out at the organizers for trying to execute something in what they called a superficial garb of wokeness. They were also upset with the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, that governs all of this, to allow something like this to pass. it was not just common folk or some celebrities witnessing the ceremony who criticized this. Politicians the world over gave their own spin to this, calling this a shambolic representation on a global event. They blamed the organizers for abusing the Bible and making a mockery of an iconic scene. One of the many who condemned this was, of course, Russia's foreign minister spokesperson, Maria Zakharova. It's not the only faux pas that Paris organizers ended up making. As the South Korean contingent made their rowing entrance along the river, they were mistakenly introduced as North Korea. Though the subtitle, the text on the bottom of screens that was broadcasting the opening ceremony for those viewing outside was correct, the error is politically sensitive owing to the tense relations between the two countries. All right, in the quest of being the greenest and the greatest Olympics, Paris is turning out to be a bit problematic for the athletes. It's like students in the class of a very strict teacher. They realize soon enough that it is best to mess up and get punished to stand outside the classroom so that they can have their own fun and watch the other kids squirm. So what's making top athletes the world over squirm in Paris? Many of them are pretty fed up with the facilities that the Games Village is providing. The same village which was lauded for their out-of-the-box setup is now facing a mini exodus. Students exiting classrooms, in this case athletes, finding reasons to run away from the Games Village, ditching the prestigious Games Village for luxury hotels instead. So what's prompted them to leave proximity, safety, and break the rules to do that? Take American tennis player Emma Navarro, for instance. Her biggest complaint is about the cardboard beds. Just to give you a bit of a flashback, it's these anti-sex beds. But her biggest problem is lack of sleep. The beds are just too small to give athletes their much needed. Now, it isn't just the bed that has been the cause for concern. The steaming hot rooms have kept many awake too. Before the Olympics even started, the Paris Games were expected to be the hottest in the history, and it's not like Paris didn't prepare for it. They did, in accordance to the green theme. So instead of air conditioners, geothermal cooling systems have been installed instead. Many, like Team USA, have resisted too, getting their own portable AC units. But the concerns are not just about facilities in the players' rooms. The fuel that keeps Olympians going. Food, that's the biggest bone of contention. Reports say the start of the Games had reports of dining hall serving up more drama than Michelin star meals. Many athletes, including India's medal winner Manu Bhaker, have complained about lack of proper food. The village prepared to serve 13 million meals, but upon arriving, athletes reported of having not enough of protein or just subpar food. There were news reports of a shortage of eggs as Paris opted for more green menus. The issue seems to have been resolved, but not before that prompted many to leave the village. Now, there's obviously no room service at the Games Village, so athletes have had to do their best to stock up. And one thing they cannot run out of is toilet paper. And speaking of toiletries, Coco Gauff, tennis prodigy, shared her dismay at the logistics too, where 2 bathrooms are being shared between 10 athletes. That's an emotional, jubilant Angela Carini telling the world that she made her father proud by making it to the Games, getting closer to her biggest dream of winning a medal. Round of 16 is how far she got, and that excitement of taking it another step further, of entering the quarterfinals at Paris, ended in 46 seconds. Her resilience lasted all of 46 seconds. She was facing Algerian boxer Imane Khalif, and she could not withstand any more than 2 blows before her nose started bleeding. A word with her coach, and Carini forfeited the match. That's Carini in the blue crumpling to the fore, and she was sobbing right after she surrendered. From tears of joy before the Paris Olympics to now tears of anguish. She said she couldn't take the punches that the Algerian boxer was landing. This is the same boxer who had been barred from the gold medal match last year at the World Championship in New Delhi, India. Reason? Khalif had failed the eligibility test. The levels of testosterone in her body was way too high for her to be participating in the women's category. And remember, this is a boxer who's participated in tournaments before alongside women in the past. Khalif, though, had failed to meet the gender eligibility criteria by the IBA, the International Boxing Association, in 2023. But come the Paris Olympics, the decision regarding boxing events fell squarely on IOC. This because IBA remains suspended now. And IOC instead reversed the last call and allowed 2 boxers, one, of course, Algerian Imane Khalif, and the other, a Taiwanese boxer, Lin Yu Ting, to be part of women's events at Paris. Khalif in the 66 kg category and Yu Ting in 57 kg category. This 46-second bout, though, created quite an outrage online. The biggest backlash that IOC and by that extension France are facing is from Italy and the Prime Minister herself, who said this.
I think that athletes who have male genetic characteristics should not be admitted to women's competitions. And not because you want to discriminate against someone, but to protect the right of female athletes to be able to compete on equal terms. From my point of view, it was not an even contest.
Melanie, in fact, personally met the Italian boxer, consoling her after her loss, even as Algeria and their supporters have been taunting Carini. But this public indignation and condemnation has been met with strong resistance and a firm backing of their own decisions. IOC did not waver in their response to this, standing by the call that they made of allowing these 2 boxers.
This involves real people, and we're talking about real people's lives here. They have competed and they continue to compete in the women's competition. They have lost and they have won against other women throughout over the years. And by the way, this should make this absolutely clear for everyone, this is not a transgender issue. I know you know that, but I think there has been some misreporting on this, and I think it's very, very important to say that this is not a transgender issue. These women have been competing in competitions for many years.
The IOC putting some valid points across to defend their decision. Even as Algerian Olympic Committee was enraged and said they call these malicious attacks on their distinguished athlete. Yes, there have been some malicious attacks, which were not necessary. I'm all for expressing your identity and standing by who you feel you associate with. Khalif represents a unique case here, where she's born with as a woman, but has XY chromosome, which are present only in male bodies. It's unfortunate. But here's the issue with that. Higher the testosterone levels, higher would be the strength and the muscle mass skeleton advantage. making that body develop in a manly or male way. So simply put, for the same hours that both, say Khalif in this case and Karini, train, the Algerian would have more muscle development, more endurance, and by that extension, much more strength than Karini, all because of the XY chromosome. Now, is that a fair face-off? Because this is sport. It's a contest, a fight between two equals. They say sport is a level playing field. And that phrase could not be any more true than in this scenario. A battle between two individuals or two teams who have been classified on the very same parameters and stand at level with each other. That's sport. Is that the case here, though? Belgium triathlete Claire Michel fell ill after competing in the women's triathlon event. Michel was hospitalized and treated for an E. coli infection. E. coli, a bacteria that can cause serious intestinal and medical concern. How is it transmitted? Through contaminated food or contaminated water that makes its way into the digestive tract via the mouth. Michel fell sick right after her swim in the River Seine, and that forced Belgium to pull out of the mixed triathlon event. Now, while the Belgian authorities didn't blame River Seine's pollution levels for Michel's sickness, the truth is Michel isn't the only athlete who fell ill after swimming in the river, highlighting a potential hazard for anyone swimming in River Seine. Before Michel's, Switzerland's Adrian Brifford had a stomach infection. This after Brifford competed in the men's triathlon event. He too pulled out of the mixed triathlon events thereafter. A Canadian triathlete, Tyler Mislochuk, got sick and threw up 10 times. Not a pretty sight, and not something you want to experience right in the middle of the most important tournament in your life. So it's not just one athlete. Many of the triathletes and those who swam in the river have had serious illnesses to combat, leading me to believe that the River Seine was indeed not swimmable. Pretty enough to be a tourist and ride on a yacht and take in the sights and sounds, sure, but not safe enough to be an athlete and swim in. Confirming this fact was Belgium triathlete Jolien Vermeulen, who was part of the women's triathlon event.
Can't say safety of athletes is a priority. While swimming under the bridge, I felt and saw things that we shouldn't think about too much. The Seine has been dirty for 100 years, so they can't say that the safety of the athletes is a priority. I took probiotics. I had the idea of not drinking water, but yes, IT failed. They couldn't cancel the race completely either. Now they just have to hope that there won't be too many sick athletes.
They have to hope there aren't too many sick athletes. Vermeulen's clearly saying that those who swam in the river felt something wasn't right. And picture the predicament of the athletes for a second here. You have to swim through a river that doesn't feel right. And if you stop, you're affecting the chances of your team, your country winning a medal. And think about it, a river where public swimming has been banned for over a century. How could it be squeaky clean so soon? Despite France's more than $1 billion investments on the cleanliness front, it is fair to say the river failed to deliver. Before the men's and women's triathlon events took place, the practice sessions, in fact, were cancelled. The organizers, though, went ahead and conducted the main events in the fear of backlash coming in from all quarters of them having to cancel events at the Games. But they didn't think it would take an ugly turn with athletes falling sick. Despite this calamity, the mixed relay event went ahead as planned, despite the practice sessions to those also being called off due to high toxin levels in the water. Clearly, the toxin levels in the water did not miraculously fall a day later for the event to take place. So safe to say, player safety was compromised. Now, of course, it wasn't just controversial. There were a lot of memorable moments that this edition will be remembered for. The athletes, of course, stepped up to deliver some stunning moments that we all will remember for decades and generations to come. Like, of course, Novak Djokovic at 37 clinching an Olympic gold, Simone Biles making a comeback, and many, many more memorable performances. Take a look. USA won its team gold at gymnastics last night in front of a glittery, starry-eyed crowd. And yet, one name emerged in that triumph, that of Simone Biles. She dazzled everyone with her vaults, her twists, her twirls, and impeccable landings. The horrors of Tokyo seemed a distant memory. A Tokyo Olympics that saw Simone Biles pull out of all events, an Olympics that made Biles withdraw from it all, an Olympics that made her come to terms with twisties, a mental health issue that she knew she had to deal with before she ever got back. And it was not just a mental barrier that she had to face and battle hard with. Biles has broken down in the past about the sexual abuse that she had been subjected to, along with many others, by the USA gymnastics team doctor Larry Nassar. To even think of smiling again and hope for a better future would have seemed very difficult. And this for an Olympic champion, someone who knows how winning feels. Biles had to experience the biggest highs and the lowest of lows to come to this moment in the city of love in Paris, at the Bercy Arena, to finally smile again, laugh again. We spoke at the start about the cost of winning. It cost Biles a lot to just be there at the arena, run in and perform, dance to perfection and glide and soar with grace. The strong Biles may have moved on, but she's not forgotten. And to keep that mental peace and sanity about her, she still goes to therapy. In fact, on the morning of the gold medal winning event, Biles attended therapy. No happiness is permanent and no hardship is fleeting. That's been the life lesson that has propelled Biles to keep gunning for gold. She says winning has changed for her now. She says she's grown older, more mature, and it is this thought that continues to inspire many.
I think what success means to me is a little bit different than before. Now it's just showing up, being in a good head place, having fun out there, and whatever happens, happens. I focus on routines and going out there competing and seeing how comfortable and confident I feel.
But here's the thing, the crowd that came for the gymnastics event last night came for Biles. From Bill Gates to Gianni Infantino to Lady Gaga, Tom Cruise, Serena Williams, Spike Lee and many more. Celebrities in their own right, huge personalities, were there in full attendance to watch a star. It was their way of saying they stood by her. They stood for her resilience. They supported her supremacy. They applauded her fighting spirit to emerge as the biggest American icon of the sporting world. And that is something. Simone Biles' magical art, her stunningly powerful artistry, is what wins her medals and brings her glory. No doubt, a one-of-a-kind star. But it's her journey, what all she has had to endure along the way, the torment she withstood, that has truly made her a legend already. When a world champion and Noah Lyles is up against some of the fastest men in the world, the hype has to be unbearable, and it was. And it only intensified after the semi-final because Lyles finished behind Jamaica's oblique Sivelle. Sivelle dishing out a death stare to Lyles right before crossing over the line, telling him that he was the supreme runner here, not Lyles. And there is, of course, history to this war and this rivalry of sorts. Sivelle had engaged in some of these heated moments 2 months back at the Racers Grand Prix 2 and had won that race there. So everyone was expecting Lyles and Sivelle to go head-to-head here too. Lyles was a man under fire and it was getting a little too hot in there, with the pressure mounting on the American. Lyles was also doing his best to fly under the radar, coming in for the final, wearing a pair of sunglasses, a hat and even a mask to avoid any extra attention. The race threw all expectations out of the window with this photo finish. Sivelle was nowhere in contention here. It was Sivelle's compatriot, Kishane Thompson, who was not just giving Lyles a stiff competition, but also gave the most picture-perfect final moments of the race. Noah Lyles beat Kishane Thompson to gold by 0.005 of a second. Both the runners recorded a time of 9.79 seconds, but Lyles had a 0.784 to his name as compared to Thompson's 0.789. Champion stuff this. Lyles may have proclaimed himself to be the heir of Usain Bolt, and the American is actually going about his way proving to be so. World Championship and now an Olympic gold. And he isn't just battling on the field, he's battling issues outside too. Right after his gold medal win, Lyles tweeted this. He has asthma, allergies, dyslexia, ADD, anxiety and depression, and had a simple message. He said if he can do it, why couldn't the rest? If he can fight all of this and his competition on the track, anyone could do it too. Look at this picture. When was the last time you saw India and Pakistan on an Olympic podium of a track and field event? I'll give you the answer right away, never. That's Pakistan's Arshad, Nadeem and India's Neeraj Chopra post the Javelin event. History indeed created. And what makes this seemingly non-intense, individualistic competition that much more interesting is the men who took gold and silver. Two exceptional athletes for Pakistan and India, who are redefining the India versus Pakistan rivalry. This one here, Nadeem and Neeraj, has character, has intense rivalry and genuine appreciation and respect. That makes for a compelling story to tell. Now, who is Nadeem? He is the son of a construction worker, in fact, one of 7. A hard life. His father was the single earning member, so not much of a financial support otherwise, very little means, and just the most basic infrastructure. Childhood was a hand-to-mouth existence, managing to survive. An interest in cricket was there initially, no surprises there, of course, it's Pakistan. But it led to a switch to athletics because of his build, and of course he wanted to be part of an individual sport. Now all he needed was a stick and a maidan, or an open ground. Initially, bamboo shaved and shaped to look like a javelin. He trained hard, and even after he became the national champion in 2015, it was all up to Nadeem and his first mentor and coach, Rashid Ahmed Saki. The very first time, in fact, that Nadeem and Neeraj went head-to-head was in 2016. At the South Asian Games, where Nadeem clinched bronze and Neeraj went away with gold. From then on, they have crossed paths many a time, and the relationship, of course, has formed a bit of a friendship off the field. We have to look at the Indian contingent. Now, there were a lot of promises made way before the start of the Olympics that this particular edition, the Paris Games, would be the biggest and best ever medal haul that India would rake in. There were a lot of promises made, but it didn't quite live up to it. There were quite a few near misses, some fourth place finishes, some disappointments. But the biggest story, the biggest image that came out of the Games, of course, was the heartbreaking story of Vinesh Phogat, an athlete who wrestled so many adversaries from behind the scenes, off the mat, to her opponents, very, very dominant opponents on the field, to make it to a gold medal match. The first ever woman wrestler to reach so far, only to be disqualified for just 100 grams. It was a heartbreaking story that became the biggest talking point for the Indian contingent there, of course, which also led to her announcing her retirement from the sport itself. But there were a few moments that brought smiles to all the Indian fans, not just gathered there, but everywhere else around the country, by some stunning performances. Take a look. We talk of sport being a field where the slightest of margins determines a winner from a loser. We've seen so many examples of it already, right here at the Games itself. But no story could establish that more, and with such anguish, than this. And to think Vinesh did all that she possibly could to shave off the extra kilos at the end of her 3 bouts last night. 3 grueling bouts where she ruled the mat. At the end of it all, she found herself to be close to 3 kilos in excess. She had to eat to gain energy for the next day, but of course, it was the big final. The fact that this is not her natural weight category did not help. Why? Because she always fought in the 53 kg category. The fact that she had to push herself hard and take a gamble, drop her weight to find a spot in the 50 kg category at the Olympics. Why? Because her compatriot Antim Pangal had made it to the 53 kg one. So all of this meant she was fighting everything. Her own personal anguish of the last whole year, where she stood tall against the authorities and fought for Indian women wrestlers. Her own personal heartbreaks of 2 Olympics gone by without even getting close to a medal. Her ACL injury and surgery, followed by recovery. After all of this, she had to fight her own body. And she did all, gave it her all, more and more than that, over the whole night, whole of last night without a moment of sleep. But she failed. No athlete should have to go through something like this before the night of a big final. She was even hospitalized afterwards because of dehydration. So really, I cannot imagine what Vinesh would be going through. India's Manu Bhaker notched up a historical first. She became India's first female Olympics medal winner in shooting. This after she clinched bronze in the 10-meter air pistol event. This was also India's first medal at the Paris Olympics, but this monumental achievement isn't just about India's golden hour. It's a coming-of-age story of a youngster who had a horror Tokyo Olympics, a fall from grace and a fallout with her mentor, Jaspal Rana. And after all that, she managed to turn things around. All it took was the Bhagavad Gita, a religious scripture, Usain Bolt, the fastest man on earth, and her mentor, Jaspal Rana.
Tokyo Olympics shattered Bhaker. The teenager was making her Olympic debut and there was a lot riding on her. But she had a terrible experience in all 3 events she participated in. Due to her pistol malfunctioning, Bhaker failed to qualify and broke down. After the loss, she had a bitter fallout with her coach Jaspal Rana and the duo parted ways. Bhaker felt disconnected with the sport. She wanted to quit shooting and pursue studies abroad. 3 years after the fallout, one call from a reinvigorated Bhaker got them together again. Bhaker got to this place thanks to Usain Bolt. She read his book that spoke about the highs and lows of an athlete who had achieved the impossible and started thinking of doing this all over again. The hunger to win a medal came via Usain Bolt.
I noticed some things are common for every athlete. I stay still, Usain Bolt deals in speed. Sports are different but journeys are the same. He talked about his nervousness before races, during a race and even after they are over. It was all very relatable.
Her reunion with Rana was shaping her for a rebirth. His unique training methods and his chemistry with Bhaker was key to the young shooter finding her feet and her will again. It was Rana who also led her to sharpen her mind. She took to Bhagavad Gita, the scriptures, to find additional inspiration that she says has helped her along the way.
What was your first thought that came to you? I know Sunday was very, very special. Did you even imagine? I mean, of course, everyone goes for the big prize. But did you imagine after Sunday you will have such a moment today?
No, definitely one medal I had hoped that I will get for the country. But 2 is an immense pride for me. But on Sunday, I think I was more like, let's focus on this match and we will see what the future has. So I just kept trying my best in each match. And well, it was a great show for the Indian team. So I'm glad that I was a part of it and I could win 2 medals for my country.
India has managed to seal its 4th medal at the Paris Games. They've won their 4th bronze as well. Yes, the colour is the same, but it's been quite the victory. A perfect farewell for PR Srijay's Indian hockey, notching up the 4th medal for India, winning bronze, beating Spain. But this is a moment they will cherish. The visuals that we're seeing right now over there, right from Paris, is that all the players have gathered around PR Srijay, who's in tears, he's on the floor. They're all in an emotional moment. It's been an emotional ride for all of them. You remember that quarter-final match? That was the most important game. That was a game that could have gone either way. They had a very tough contest playing Great Britain. They were down to 10 man because they had one of their key defenders being red carded. The first ever instance of a red card happening at the games and only the 4th in 11 years. So it was quite a setback that India had to contend with, and they managed to turn that around and get to the semi-finals. The semi-final was heartbreaking. They lost to Germany, but it's been quite a ride. And in fact, if I just have to turn back to look at all the celebrations that are going, I have to bring you those pictures. It's, of course, a very dejected Spain team. They did give India a tough fight, and they are in tears. But what an emotional moment this is for India. Yes, they did have a lot of close finishes, a lot of 4th place finishes through this week. But it's been an emotional ride for this hockey team, especially PR Srijay, who said this would be his last. In fact, the last edition at Tokyo is where they also clinched bronze. So in some sense, they have defended that bronze medal that they won in Tokyo. And this is the first time that they have won 2 consecutive medals in hockey in a while. There was a huge slump that Indian hockey had gone through. The glory days, of course, if you look at the medals tally of India at a particular sporting discipline in the Olympics, hockey sits right on top. They've won 12, and this is the 13th. 13 medals in a sporting discipline shows dominance. But there was a huge period when there was a slump, and hockey wasn't really what it used to be. I mean, this was not the team that had won 8 gold medals in a sporting discipline. And that's turned around now. Neeraj, India's blue-eyed boy, and there is little doubt in there. He's a champion, no doubt, because one of the most important traits of a champion is consistency, and he has that in spades. You just have to see the consistent throws that he's made over and above the 85-meter mark, that he's registered in his career. In fact, that list there, which is 88 plus, is envious. He only got better as he grew in the sport, and after a point, he continuously threw 88 meters or more. Most of those events there where he clinched gold. The fact that he is the only Indian athlete to win 2 Olympic medals in track and field is secondary. To think that he made a whole country feel that he fell short despite a silver only speaks of his competence and his talent, one the world recognizes. And then, of course, a true champion is raised like one, with humility, a quiet sense of pride, and a heart of gold. It wasn't all serious talk. There was some fun too. Now, what's a sporting event, any big tournament, without the meme makers, the online and the internet stars? Of course, it was not just the performances on the field, it was also those stars who became internet sensation overnight, drawing that much more attention to Paris Games, which was already a spectacle. Here's our pick. Meet Turkey's very own real agent 007, 51-year-old air pistol shooter Yusuf Dikeç. Now, he won silver alongside his partner Seval İleyda Tarhan at the 10-meter air pistol mixed team event. Serbia pipped this Turkey duo to clinch gold, but internet and the world is abuzz with talks of this shooter Yusuf. The reason? Not his exceptional shooting skills alone, though that is quite obviously what contributed to the pair pocketing silver. It's because of how he did it. Well, while the other shooters were all properly strapped up, wearing proper gears, our man Yusuf was spotted just casually shooting, no protective gears. If he was caught walking about the games village, you wouldn't know he was an athlete. You wouldn't be able to tell, and it's not just that. Just the manner in which he eliminated his opponents one by one, walking up to his mark, sporting what could best be described as reading glasses, one hand holding up the pistol, the other casually in his pocket, and shooting bullseyes at will. His cool and cucumber shooting has broken the internet, triggering the hottest meme fest.
The stylish Turkish shooter Yusuf Dikeç is inspiring not just the meme makers but other top athletes too. Like Swedish pole vaulter Armand Duplantis, who recreated Dikeç's pose after his record-breaking win. If Paris was going gaga over the Turkish sharpshooter, the Games also saw a lady boss in Kim Yeji. Yeji is going viral for her James Bond-esque style and seemingly effortless precision. She too shot to silver. Unlike Dikeç, Yeji had full gears, making her even more threatening and adorable at the same time. But that threat eased up a bit when she was spotted carrying a stuffed toy elephant belonging to the 31-year-old's daughter. Zhang Chongyue won the bronze medal in the women's 50-meter rifle 3-positions shooting final. But the Chinese shooter is creating waves online for the Hello Kitty stickers on her rifle. Way to get the cool quotient up.
I hope you enjoyed this very special episode that we brought to you, looking back, a bit of a recap of the 2 weeks that the Olympics was, as the Olympic event itself draws to a close. As always, keep following Firstpost and me here, Rupha Ramani, for all the latest coverage of sporting activity, sporting action and reactions from around the world. Till then, take care.